Hello, people. Finished another book. Crazy Horse and Custer. Stephen E. Ambrose. It's a nice long book, 483 pages. The book, it follows the lives of Crazy Horse and Custer and all the people that they were associated with. If you're looking for a book that, details the Battle of Little Bighorn, this is not it. It's a 483-page book. The Battle of Little Bighorn starts on page 435, and it maybe runs for 5 pages. That's it. A couple of years ago, I read another book that was much, much better and covered the battle a lot better. Covered what Reno and Benteen did and what Custer did, much, much better. It starts out telling a little bit about Custer's, hometown. He was born in Ohio, and there's a part in there about what these people did with, the giant forests. The Ohio Valley, I guess, was just a gorgeous old-growth forest, and they would go in there and they would cut all the underbrush down, and then they would girdle all the big trees, and they'd come back a couple years later and cut them down and burn them, and it just must have been a horrific. I don't know. I don't understand how people could do that. I don't understand the mindset. Maybe we've just done a lot of mental evolution in the last 200 years. I don't know. Talleyrand was here in the United States, and if you don't know who Talleyrand is, you better find out, because he was a pretty amazing character. But he was here during the Terror in France. He came here and hid out, and Talleyrand in his memoirs writes about the rapacious greed of Americans, of North Americans, and it's just, to me, it's incredible. I got a lot of notes here. They're all mixed up in shit, so just bear with me. Talking about Crazy Horse as a child and Crazy Horse's upbringing, and the upbringing in a Sioux village. It's quite a bit different, obviously, than pioneer white people. There was actually gay people in a Sioux village, and they call them a winktie, and everybody was pretty much ambivalent towards them. And 19th century Americans, even masturbation, they looked at as evil, and then tried to stop you from doing it. I would have been in trouble then. They thought it could lead to insanity or death. Custer has quite the career. He goes to West Point and gets in a bunch of trouble there and shit. He does graduate, though. He has quite the career for fighting for the North in the Civil War. On several occasions, he defends slavery, and he's got a lot of friends in the South, and he's just he tries to be on both sides of the fence there. Yeah, he defends slavery. I got a lot of notes. There's a woman named Eleanor Hinman, and she goes and interviews a lot of the American Indians. Much, much later, there's an Indian, his name is He Dog, and he's still alive in 1930. Little Bighorn was in 1876, sorry. And so apparently there must be a book out there somewhere that she has wrote that sounds like it would be pretty good. Custer, after the war, he gets, for a while they're in Texas, and I don't even understand this, but apparently there's talk of the Union forces marching into Mexico to deal with Maximilian. That's another episode in world history that, if you don't know who Maximilian is, Maximilian was Austrian. He was supported by French armies. It's a pretty bizarre little period of history there. Uh, Custer gets into political intrigues throughout his whole life. The Black Hills, the Americans want it because of gold. There is a homestake mining company that pretty much takes care of the Black Hills to this day. They've got almost $2 billion worth of gold out of there. Custer, he does this fucking Washita River thing. During the Washita River, he actually abandons 19 men. He doesn't go looking for them. They found out later that they've been killed. And I got here 325. Read page 325. It has to do with that. Custer's got a couple. There's a lot of people that don't like him. There's people that love him, people that don't like him. But he abandons these 19 men. So Benteen, writes about it, and they want to have a court of inquiry and everything. I'm going to read this paragraph. Custer had a personal problem. On February 9th, 1869, the St. Louis Democrat printed an unsigned letter from an officer of the 7th Cavalry criticizing Custer for making no effort to save Elliott and his men. When Custer read the story, he called all his officers to a conference. Tapping his boot top with his whip, he said he intended to horsewhip the author. Captain Frederick Benteen, a leading anti-Custer officer, shifted his revolver to a handy position in his belt and said, "All right, General, start your horsewhipping now. I wrote it." Dumbfounded, confused, red-faced, Custer stared at Benteen a moment, then walked out. Custer was, he was a pretty courageous man. He led numerous charges in the Civil War. He led numerous charges in the Indian Wars. But apparently, when confronted with individual combat, he didn't know what to do, and he storms out the door. Another weird thing is one of the times that Custer is on campaign in the West. H.M. Stanley is a newspaper correspondent with him, and that is the Stanley that goes to Africa and finds Livingston. Custer abandons his command. He always took dogs with him. He was always out hunting, riding out of sight of his men. And one of the times he's trying to hunt a buffalo, and the buffalo turns towards him. Custer panics, shoots his own horse in the head, and he's stranded out in the middle of the plains. But it does work out all right for him. There's this treaty of 1868 where the Indians really get what they want in this treaty. But nobody obeys the treaty, and it ends up being bad anyway. I got here, read page 361, the third paragraph. It's boring. Page 444. This author is not only a Custer man, but he's kind of a Western expansion man too. He makes no apologies for exterminating the Indians. He makes no apologies for Custer. Custer not only lost all his men at the Little Bighorn, but during the Civil War, if you were with Custer, odds are you were probably going to get killed. Or 44. Not even on this last day. The attack had been a gamble, but so had all his attacks. It was a good plan. It could have worked. If only that damn Marino would have charged the camp when he first came upon it. That's what I wanted to read. I don't know if he's writing that thinking what Custer would have thought. Reno didn't have enough men to charge the camp. Reno lived through the damn battle, and so did some of Reno's men. 483 here. No, I don't have 483. Anyways, I think that's about it. Yeah. It was a pretty good book. My very last note says nothing ever gets better, and it doesn't. The West is not like it used to be. The prairie grass is gone. The buffalo are pretty much gone. The Indians are pretty much gone. On the last couple of pages there, he gives some population numbers for the Arapaho, the Brule, the Cheyenne, some of the other Sioux nations, and none of them are over 10,000 people. So they're not doing that good. They still have not been civilized, whatever that means. They haven't gone completely the white man's way. And I don't know, it's fucked up. Thanks.